Hi, this is Nancy with Scathingly Brilliant Idea. Welcome back. Today I'm going to show you an update of my paper inventory system. I started this with a paper sampler I got from Yamamoto Papers, jet pens, and I will provide a link to the video where I go through my testing of those papers. But since then, I have gone through and added all the different papers I have in my collection to see how they perform in a semi-scientific manner. I am using on all of them the same ink swatches, a watercolor test, testing of different pens of different sizes, and also how markers and different stamps behave on them. I'm going to dig right in with the Tomoe River paper. I have multiple manufacturers of Tomoe River paper, and I'm going to show you how they performed in comparison to one another and give you a recap of kind of where they stand in terms of my preferences. So the first is the Sanzen 52 GSM Tomoe River paper that would have been purchased directly from Sakae papers. So here you can see the shimmer ink behaves very well on it. You get the chroma shading of the Sailor Manual Haha. The sheening ink of Octopus Siberis looks very, very nice, and watercolors behave nice on it too. Now, this J. Herbin Encre Violette, which is a scented ink, performs pretty much poorly across the board. I've pretty much given up on writing with it, but it still smells nice. And then my pen test here, just as a reminder, I'm looking at an extra fine Pilot Custom 74, 1.1 TWSBI, a broad Pilot Custom 823, Flex Magna Carta 650, and then an extra fine Diplomat Excellence. So I think that all of the inks, the fountain pen inks, work really well on this. The markers too, for the most part, work really well on this too. Now let's turn it over and show you the back. The back, you'll see that there's definitely ghosting, and on the scented ink, there's bleed through, which there's very few papers that it doesn't. But the markers behave really well on this. And that is, I guess, a good batch of the Sanzen from this year. Now here I have some of the original Tomoegawa paper from Wonderland 222's notebooks that I have. It's also 52 GSM, and it looks very nice as well. Even the scented ink behaved a little bit better on this. It doesn't really feather that much. And I'll show you the backside in a bit. And then all of the different pens are pretty much true to their size or their diameter that they write with. And the markers and the different stamps work well with it too. On the back side of this, you'll see that there's the ghosting, which is pretty characteristic of all Tomoegawa. And then the only thing that bled through was that scented ink. And I would say that some of these Midori join dots qualified as bleeding through slightly on this. The next I tried was the Sanzen by Lochby that was purchased this year. It is 68 GSM. So it is a little bit heavier than the 52s that we just looked at. The inks perform fairly well. You get some flatness here on the Encre Violette, that scented ink, but it doesn't really feather that poorly. The watercolors work real nice on it, as do the pens and the markers and the stamps. On the reverse side of this, there's that scented ink, but you have a lot less ghosting. And that's attributable to the paper, the weight of this paper. It's a little bit thicker, and you don't have any of that problems there. So Lochby's actually a pretty nice paper to be working with. Next, I have Tomoe River paper from a 2024 Aura Estelle planner. It is 52 GSM, so we're back to that lighter weight. And you get all of the characteristics of the inks. You get a little bit of the feathering and just overall dullness of that scented ink. And the markers perform really well on the front side. On the back side, we've got more ghosting, but really only bleed through on that scented ink again. But everything else, like even the broad pilot that I have inked up, is with a pretty bold ink. It's just fine. Now, Take a Note is a 68 GSM in the two planners that I have from them and their recorder. And it is a really nice performer as well. Again, because it's a little bit thicker, you're not going to experience the same issues typically, but you'll see that that broad pilot did bleed through on this. But interestingly, the markers behaved pretty well. And of course, that feathered or that scented ink did not behave very well. More Tomoe River paper. We have Sanzen and Sterling ink from 2024 here. And on this, we have really good performance overall. The sheening and the shimmer, and even this scented ink performed really nice on this. The rest of everything else looks good on the front, and on the back it did pretty well, with the exception of this bleed through on the scented ink. Smruti pens had notebooks that they made this year with Sanzen, 52 GSM, and I purchased them. I purchased one of them at the St. Louis Pen Show. We've got the issues with that scented ink, but everything else looks good. Interestingly, I think you get more of the shading on this, as well as the shimmer showing through on that Robert Oster ink. And on the back side, we've got pretty typical results here. You've got this that's prone to bleed through on practically everything. And then these join dots, which are very juicy, have a concentration of ink on them because they have a flat tip. Is all I can figure out. You've got a little bit there as well. Now, the last one hasn't made its way in a book yet. I got some Yamamoto Tomoegawa Tomoe River paper and 52 GSM recently in my recent purchase from Komorebi, and it looks very nice. And on the reverse, it is pretty much the same. There's a little bit of ghosting, or sorry, bleed through on some of the places with the broad pilot and the scented ink, and then these Midori join dots. And this stamp, which is a juicy one, it's a roller stamp, also had a lot, almost 100% ghosting and a little bit of bleed through. So that to me did not perform as well as the example that I had from Wonderland 222, where it was a lot better on the reverse side, in my opinion. See here, the differences here. So that's interesting. So back to the book. I have next this Cosmo Air Light, I guess also B7 or Tranix, manufactured by Nippon Paper, the 75 GSM. This is taken actually from one of the Just Scribbles, her doodles book from this year. And while the inks look really nice on it, here it's very clear, and everything performs really well. There's virtually no there's no bleed through. There's virtually no ghosting on the back. I am, everybody has their own opinion about Cosmo Air Light. My opinion, as far as it comes to writing, it's just a little too squishy or spongy for me to like to write on. I guess if I had to write on it, I would be tempted to put a pencil board or something firm behind it, because by the time it's in a book and you're actually writing on several pages deep within a book, it really starts to slug through a little bit. But you got to admit, everything looks very pretty on it. This is the Iroful or Iroful, everyone's pronouncing it differently, 75 GSM by Sakae, which is the same manufacturer of the Sanzen, as far as I could see. This ink, this works really well. It's a little better, in my opinion. I enjoy writing on this better than the Cosmo Air Light. It's a very thick paper, so you do get minimal ghosting and bleed through, even on this problematic um, scented ink. View Corona from Jet Pens is nice. It feels like a Tomoe River paper. It's 52 GSM. All the inks perform really well on it. The writing on it is great. It feels really nice. And on the reverse side, you have that a little bit of bleed through, but everything else is just typical ghosting like you would have on Tomoe River paper. And so that's one of my favorites. Unfortunately, I believe it's in short supply because it's become more popular. Now, Marumon's Mnemosyne, which I asked at the pen show in San Francisco how you pronounce it, and I heard people say Mnemosyne. I've heard people say Mnemosyne. I've looked it up on Google, and it says both. So anyway, now it's Mnemosyne. At least that's what the manufacturer says. This is 80 GSM, and this is really one of my favorite papers to write on when it comes to a pad setting that's readily available and affordable. So it's no surprise that this one tested really well. But you do see a lot more bleed through on this. Almost all of the inks bled through on this, as well as my Pilot Custom broad. So that has some limitations associated with it. Yusari 95 GSM. I have a notebook of theirs that's manufactured by Nakabayashi, and the inks look really nice on it. It does write well. It's got a little bit of a slick finish to it, and it had some ghosting on my Pilot Broad and on the Midori join dots, and obviously that scented ink went through. But otherwise, it behaved pretty well. It's just a thicker paper to write on. Now we're getting into Midori, the MD 80 GSM paper from one of their notebooks here. And it's cream colored, as you can see, against the white campus paper I taped it onto for purposes of this notebook. And I do like writing on it fairly well. We get the feathering and the same issues with this scented ink, but everything else performed really well on it. Minimal ghosting, I would say, compared to Tomoe River paper, probably because of its thickness and the composition of it. But it does, the colors look nice on it. It's not, I'm not terribly distracted by the fact it's cream colored versus white. The Graphilo 81.4 GSM from Gobeha is a good paper. I do enjoy that paper. I recently picked up another one of their notebooks, but this is from some loose leaf I had. And look at that. I mean, there's no ghosting, no bleed through, even on that problematic ink. So that is a solid paper. Takasago by Dominant Industry is something I picked up from Smruti Pens in St. Louis. She said that it's a pretty good paper as well. And it is. This scented ink looks mottled as well as feathered on it. And, to be honest, don't know if there's something wrong with the ink at this point because it's so universally poor. I might at some point try some different scented inks, but that's the one I tested with. And it is as expected on the back, you've got the bleed through on that. Good old Stalogy, 52 GSM by Nitoms. It's a pretty dependable paper. I don't mind writing on it. I mean, I do like them, and they're pretty affordable. Notebooks, they come in multiple sizes, which is nice. But if you look at the back, you do see some problems with those broader pens. That you got some ghosting, or I'm sorry, a little bit of bleed through. And then obviously on that scented ink, you've got some bleed through. And even on the markers here, you get a little bit of bleed through. The Rhodia 80 GSM paper actually performed really well. I traditionally haven't been a big fan of Rhodia, but this was that top bound one. So I don't know for a fact. I haven't done a lot of research on Rhodia, but the experience I had before from their spiral bound notebooks was that I really wasn't a big fan of them. But this top bound notebook, I think, did pretty good. No problems with anything really other than that scented ink, and a little bit, I guess, with this shimmer. Now, the Campus Kokuyo Sara paper in 75 GSM is what this is here, and that is a nice paper as well. Kokuyo manufactures lots of different campus papers, so you need to double check what you're getting. That scented ink is a big no-no, and some of these other inks too were a no-no on that. The Perpanep Tsura paper, 96 GSM, is a nice paper as well. Of course, we're getting up there in terms of the thickness, or not the thickness, but the density of the paper. And the bleed through is limited to this scented ink. The Kleid paper is 80 GSM, and it's okay. I mean, the inks don't look quite as nice on them, I don't think, but for writing, it's fine. I mean, I wouldn't use this for sampling inks, but the inks as they are written look fine. It's just that if you are looking for swatching purposes, I would not use this paper, me personally. And you do get that problem with the broad pilot. Atoma paper is 90 GSM, and I bought an Atoma notebook from Cult Pens because it was disc bound, but it was a smaller disc system than the Happy Planner that I had been using for quite a while before I moved over. And it is a disappointing. It says it's fountain pen friendly, and maybe for just writing, but everything looks very dull on it. See, there's no shine, no nothing on this. And the back, is kind of no better performance than anything else. Now, this is something new to me, and that's Daiso. We finally got a couple of Daisos in Kansas City, and so I went there over the weekend and picked up a few things. Nothing really knocked my socks off, but I wanted to try these Salala notebooks that they had that are 80 GSM. I looked it up, and these are not going to be my cup of tea, even though they're $2.25. Everything sinks into it. So like when I was swatching it, this was like 3 or 4 dips, and then we even got some chromatic action going on here on the violet clouds. It just soaked up all of the ink, even though it feels like there's a coating on it, it's not doing much. And everything just looks dead or feathered. And on the back, it's just horrendous. So scratch that one off my list for being fountain pen friendly. This is the much lauded Canopus paper that is new from Yamamoto this year. It is 73 GSM, and it swatches very nicely. It did seem to take a little bit longer to dry, and things tended to sit on it a little bit longer. So you'll see, like if I compare it to this Tomoe River paper, these same pens, the writing is more spread out, or it's a thicker line by the time it dries. So that's a little bit disappointing, but it feels nice to write on. But it's very thick. On the back side, I mean, it's perfect. Even that finicky encre violette behaved on this. So it is nice, um, as far as no ghosting, no bleed through. And the last one I'm going to show you is plotter paper. So I picked up a plotter personal size at the pen show, and this is a 60 GSM plain paper from them. And I was pretty pleasantly surprised when I was writing on it that it writes really well, and it performs pretty well too. That broad pen worked really well. I had a few problems with that Magna Carta Flex and with the stamps. But as far as being able to confidently write with it, like even with the broad um, nib, which probably wouldn't do because it's a small notebook, um, and with the TWSBI 1.1, I think it worked pretty well. So that's the summary of my latest paper inventory. I still favor Tomoe River paper, and I'm going to be providing an update of what I'm going to do for planning next year in light of that whole drama. But it is nice to have some options out there. And one thing is for sure, I certainly have no lack of anything to be writing on. So thank you for joining me today for that summary. I hope you found it helpful, and I look forward to talking with you again. Bye.